Milvia was already dying before the blade ever touched her neck, not because she was sick, not because she was weak, but because her own family had spent years draining her life and calling it love. On the execution platform, rain poured over the capital. Nobles watched from under black umbrellas. Commoners whispered that the villainess had finally been caught. They said Milvia had tried to murder her sweet younger stepsister, Relliana. They said she used forbidden alchemy. They said a woman that greedy deserved to lose her head. But Milvia did not look at the crowd. She looked at her family. Her stepmother stood perfectly dry beneath a servant's umbrella, wearing pearls bought with Milvia's blood money. Her brother avoided her eyes. And Relliana, the innocent little sister everyone wanted to protect, smiled through her tears like she was watching a play she had written herself. That was when Milvia finally understood. The gold she had created to save them had never saved her family. It had only made them hungry, and the moment she became inconvenient, they threw her to the wolves. The executioner raised his sword. Relliana whispered, just loud enough for Milvia to hear, "Thank you for everything, sister." Milvia smiled back, not warmly, not kindly, a dead woman's smile. "If I ever open my eyes again," she thought, "I will not be your sister." The blade fell, and Milvia woke up 3 years in the past. The first thing she saw was gold. Liquid gold, dripping from a glass tube into a silver bowl. The second thing she felt was pain, a sharp, burning pain beneath her ribs, like her heart was being wrung dry by invisible hands. Milvia gasped and collapsed against the alchemy table. The room was exactly as she remembered it. Dark stone walls, shelves of forbidden books, a locked door only she could open, and in the bowl before her sat a small mountain of gold that should not exist. In her first life, Milvia believed this power was a blessing. After her father died, her family was drowning in debt. So Milvia used the only thing she had, alchemy, a forbidden technique that turned life force into gold. Every coin cost her breath, every necklace cost her sleep. Every debt she paid carved years out of her body, and still, she smiled when her family thanked her, because she wanted to be needed. That was her first mistake. Needing love from people who only needed her sacrifice. Now standing in the past with a body that had not yet been destroyed, Milvia looked at the gold in the bowl and laughed. One short, broken laugh. Then she swept the entire bowl onto the floor. Coins scattered across the stone. A maid outside the door gasped. Milvia opened the door and saw the same servant who, in the future, would testify that Milvia had poisoned Relliana. The maid turned pale. "My lady, should I call the countess?" Milvia looked at her for a long moment. "No," she said. "Call the locksmith." "The locksmith?" "Yes, this room is being sealed." The maid blinked. "But the countess said the family needs." Milvia stepped closer. "The countess may sell her jewels if she needs money." For the first time in her life, Milvia watched fear enter the servant's eyes, and it felt better than gratitude ever had. Breakfast that morning looked like a funeral, pretending to be a family meal. Her stepmother sat at the head of the table in a black silk dress, though she had not mourned Milvia's father half as much as she mourned losing his fortune. Relliana sat beside her, bright and delicate, with strawberry jam on her toast and poison behind her eyes. "My dear," the countess said, "the gold shipment was smaller this week." Milvia cut into her eggs calmly. "Yes." The countess waited. Milvia ate. Relliana tilted her head. "Sister, are you feeling unwell? You look so pale." In her first life, those words would have made Milvia apologize. Now she only smiled. "I look pale because I have been turning my life into your allowance." The knife froze in the countess's hand. Relliana's eyes widened perfectly. "Sister, how could you say that?" "Easily." The room went silent. Milvia placed a small ledger on the table. It listed every debt she had paid, every dress charged to her account, every jewel her stepmother bought while claiming the estate was starving, every payment made to protect Relliana's reputation after one of her little accidents. The countess's face hardened. "This is not suitable conversation for breakfast." "No," Milvia said. "It is suitable conversation for court, but I thought we could start gently." Relliana's lips trembled. "Are you threatening, mother?" Milvia looked at the girl who once smiled at her execution. "No, I am educating her." That was the first rule of Milvia's second life. Never threaten what you can prove. Milvia needed one person who was not for sale. In her first life she had met Deus too late. He was the knight assigned to guard her cell before execution. Everyone else treated her like a monster. Deus treated her like a person. He brought water when the jailers forgot. He listened when she said she had not tried to kill Relliana. And on the last night, he told her something that haunted her even after death. "Villains are usually louder than this," he said. "You look more like someone who was used until she broke." This time Milvia found him early. He was a low-ranking knight then, standing in the rain outside the training yard while noble sons mocked his common blood. His armor was old, his sword was plain, but his eyes were steady. Milvia approached him with a sealed contract. "I want to hire you." Deus looked at the crest on her carriage. A noble lady does not need a knight like me. I do. Why? Because everyone near me is smiling with a knife behind their back. I would like one person honest enough to hold his knife where I can see it. Deus studied her. What is the job? Protect me from my family. His expression changed. Only slightly, but Milvia saw it. Not pity. Recognition. He accepted. And from that day on, the mansion had a shadow her family could not control. A knight at Milvia's door, a witness in every hallway. A blade between her and the people who thought she would keep bleeding quietly. Relliana moved faster than Milvia expected. A week after the alchemy room was sealed, invitations arrived for a charity tea party. Relliana wanted to raise money for war orphans. Of course she did. Nothing made a liar shine brighter than borrowed suffering. The garden was decorated in white ribbons. Noble ladies praised Relliana's kindness. Musicians played soft songs beneath the trees. Then a maid screamed. Relliana collapsed beside the fountain, one hand pressed to her throat. Her teacup shattered on the grass. Someone cried, "Poison," and every eye turned to Milvia. In her first life, this was the beginning of the end. Milvia had panicked. She had shouted. She had tried to touch Relliana, and that made her look guilty. This time, she did not move. She simply looked at Deus. He stepped forward and blocked the path to Relliana. "No one touches the cup," he said. The nobles gasped. Milvia raised her voice. "Send for the imperial physician, and send for a legal witness." Relliana, still pretending to choke, opened one eye just enough to see Milvia standing calmly in the sunlight. For the first time, her performance cracked. The physician arrived. The tea was tested. There was poison in the cup. But there was also something else. Powder on the rim, powder matching the inside of Relliana's glove. The garden went silent. Relliana began crying harder. "I do not know how it got there." Milvia walked toward her slowly. Then she knelt, close enough that only Relliana could hear. "In my last life you were a better actress." Relliana stopped breathing. Milvia stood and addressed the crowd. "My sister is unwell. Clearly, someone has manipulated her into harming herself for attention. Until we find who encouraged this, she should not be allowed near medicine, kitchens, or public charity funds." It was perfect, cruel enough to cut, kind enough to deny. Relliana was not exposed as evil. She was exposed as unstable. And for a fake saint, that was almost worse. The failed poisoning made the family desperate. Desperate people do not become smarter. They become louder. The Countess tried to access Milvia's alchemy room. The lock refused her. She tried to withdraw money from the estate account. The banker refused her. She tried to sell jewels from the family vault. The vault master asked for Milvia's written approval. By sunset, the Countess stormed into Milvia's study with her face twisted in fury. "Who do you think you are?" Milvia did not look up from the documents on her desk. "The person who paid for this house." "You ungrateful girl." Milvia finally raised her eyes. That insult would have worked once, back when she still believed sacrifice was proof of love. Now it sounded like a beggar complaining the locked door was rude. She slid a contract across the desk. "The estate will be audited." The Countess laughed. "You cannot audit your own family. I can audit my own money." The document listed forged signatures, hidden accounts, and secret payments to witnesses, including one payment to the maid who would one day lie at Milvia's trial. The Countess's hand trembled. Milvia leaned back. "Here is what will happen. You will reduce household spending. Relliana will stop hosting public charity events. My brother will return every coin he borrowed from my accounts. And if we refuse," Milvia smiled, "then I become exactly the villainess you accused me of being." That night, Deus found her alone in the alchemy room. Not making gold, burning the old formulas. "Are you sure?" he asked. Milvia watched the pages blacken. "In my first life, this power made me useful. And now? Now I need to be dangerous." Relliana's final move came at the winter court. She arrived in a white dress with red marks around her throat, looking like a wounded angel. Her mother presented a petition to the royal magistrate. They accused Milvia of abuse, financial theft, and using forbidden alchemy to manipulate the family fortune. The hall erupted. Forbidden alchemy was not a scandal, it was a death sentence. Relliana cried into a handkerchief. "She has always frightened me," she whispered. "I only wanted our family to be happy." Milvia stood alone in the center of the court. At least, that was what they thought. Then Deus entered with 3 witnesses. The banker, the physician, the maid from the poisoning incident. The maid was shaking so hard she could barely stand. But Deus placed a protective hand near his sword, and she spoke. She admitted the Countess had paid her to lie. She admitted Relliana had prepared the poison cup herself. She admitted there had been plans to accuse Milvia of attempted murder. The Countess screamed that the girl was lying. Milvia only lifted one final document, the original alchemy ledger. Not the fake version her family had prepared. The real one. Every line showed the truth. Milvia had not used alchemy to steal from the estate. She had used it to save the estate. And every coin had gone directly into debts, luxuries, and schemes ordered by the very people accusing her. The magistrate's face darkened. Relliana turned pale. Her halo did not crack this time. It shattered. Milvia stepped toward her sister. In the first life, Relliana had watched her die. Now the entire court watched Relliana fall. "You wanted me to be the villainess," Milvia said softly. "So I studied the role." The magistrate ordered the countess arrested. Relliana collapsed, but no one rushed to catch her. Not this time. Milvia did not want revenge that ended in a hallway rumor. She wanted revenge with witnesses, contracts, and signatures no judge could ignore. So before the final court hearing, she set one last trap, a public auction. The countess loved auctions because auctions looked respectable. Nobody called it greed when nobles lifted numbered cards beneath chandeliers. Nobody called it desperation when ruined families bought jewels they could not afford. They called it culture. Milvia announced that House Valderin would sell several rare pieces from her father's private collection to raise funds for winter relief. The invitation was beautiful, the cause was noble, and the bait was irresistible. Because hidden inside the catalog was a ruby necklace Relliana had wanted since childhood. In the first life, Milvia had used alchemy to buy it for her. Relliana had worn it to the trial where she accused Milvia of attempted murder. This time, Milvia displayed the necklace beneath glass, surrounded by guards, appraisers, and half the capital's most bored aristocrats. Relliana arrived in pale blue, looking wounded and brave. The countess arrived in black, pretending she had come only to support charity. Milvia watched them from the balcony. Deus stood behind her. "You are certain they will move?" he asked. "They have lost access to my accounts," Milvia said. "They cannot buy what they want, so they will steal what they think they deserve." The auction began. Paintings sold. Vases sold. Old swords sold to young men who wanted to look dangerous. Then the ruby necklace was carried to the stage. Relliana's eyes changed. Only for a second. But Milvia saw the hunger beneath the tears. A servant in the countess's colors moved near the display table. Another servant blocked the view with a tray of champagne. A third reached beneath the velvet cloth. Deus moved first. His sword left its sheath with a sound sharp enough to silence the room. The servant froze with the ruby necklace in his sleeve. The countess stood so fast her chair fell backward. Relliana pressed both hands to her mouth. Milvia descended the stairs slowly. Not angry, not surprised. Dressed in dark red silk, she looked like a verdict walking down from heaven. "How strange," she said. "A theft at a charity auction." The servant began sobbing before anyone questioned him. He named the countess. Then he named Relliana. And because Milvia had invited a magistrate as an honored guest, every confession was recorded before her family could turn it into another rumor. Relliana tried one final tear. "Sister, please, I was scared." Milvia looked at the ruby necklace, then at the crowd. "No," she said. "You were comfortable. You mistook my silence for permission." That sentence traveled through the room faster than scandal. By the next morning, every noble in the capital knew the truth. Milvia was not a mad villainess stealing from her family. Her family was a nest of thieves, using her name as a purse. And now the purse had teeth. But Milvia was not finished with the auction. She ordered the necklace returned to its glass case, and raised her hand for silence. "The auction will continue," she said. The nobles stared at her like she had grown a second crown. A normal lady would have fainted. A normal daughter would have begged the room to forget the disgrace. Milvia did neither. She sold the ruby necklace for triple its value to a marquess who wanted the whole capital to know he stood on the winning side. Then she donated every coin to the Winter Relief Fund in her own name. Not her family's name, hers. By nightfall, the papers had two stories to print. One about the countess's attempted theft, and one about Lady Milvia saving the poor while her family tried to rob them. That was when society finally learned the difference between looking innocent and being useful. Relliana had tears. Milvia had results. Winning did not feel like happiness. That surprised Milvia. She thought revenge would feel warm, like sunlight after years underground. Instead, it felt clean, like pulling a poisoned thorn out of her own skin. The mansion was quiet after the arrests. Her brother had fled to a distant estate. The servants bowed deeper now. The nobles who called her cursed sent invitations written in trembling ink. And Relliana, stripped of her image, waited for trial in the same prison where Milvia once waited for death. Deus found Milvia on the balcony overlooking the capital. "You won," he said. Milvia looked at the city lights. "No, I survived." "There is a difference?" "There has to be." For the first time, her voice almost broke, because the cruelest part of revenge was realizing how much of herself had been stolen before she ever fought back. Her health, Her youth, her belief that family meant safety. No punishment could return those things. But punishment could stop the thieves from smiling. The next morning, Milvia visited the prison. Relliana sat behind iron bars, no ribbons, no perfume, no audience. Without people watching, she did not look innocent, she looked empty. Sister, Relliana whispered, please help me. Milvia remembered the execution platform. The rain. The blade. That tiny whisper. Thank you for everything, sister. Milvia smiled. You are mistaken. My sister died with me. Then she walked away. Outside the prison, Deus waited beside the carriage. Where to now? He asked. Milvia looked down at her ungloved hands. Hands that had made gold. Hands that had signed warrants. Hands that no longer shook. For years, she said, my family taught the world to see me as a villainess. Deus opened the carriage door. And? Milvia stepped inside. And now I am going to teach the world what happens when the villainess keeps receipts. She was executed as a monster, but when she came back she made every liar pay the price in gold.